Hello and welcome, folks. This is an unscheduled broadcast. Sorry I didn't advertise it sooner. Honestly, this game kind of like took over my life and changed my brain. And I'm going to have to gush a lot about this, and I'm going to try and keep this focused and get to the theory and talk. Let me just say before, Leo, so you're willing to listen to my BS. I'm not going to waste your time here. I actually am in the category of someone who went through a huge Lovecraft phase many years ago when I was a teenager, is familiar with, it's like who inspired each of these people and how, like how the different versions of interpretations of the same words, stories, or references are sometimes referring to Bierce or sometimes referring to Lovecraft. So, anyway, I'm not totally full of crap on this. There is going to be valid stuff for people that are just interested in the theorizing about this game. And I've actually am like in the core of the target audience where I've been playing Silent Hill 2 nonstop for the last 20 years. And I've read all this stuff that they're referencing, and I'm a huge fan of all this stuff. And I'm also a huge fan of meta narratives, which is something that, in order to really get the most out of this game, it kind of helps if you've had experience with meta narratives. And if you're not familiar at all with that term, the Sandman is an excellent modern example of a meta narrative where what's important about it is it's not just like, on the one hand, the author is referencing all sorts of things that they love and are hoping to connect with you on. On the other level, there is the plain text or the main plot of the story. And then on other levels, the Sandman is also technically in the DC universe. So characters from the DC Comics universe come and go from it at the same time. But the thing is that none of those are mutually exclusive. The references and that stuff is not director's commentary that you're not supposed to associate with the stuff from the DC universe or with references to real history. All of it truly exists. And the same way in this game, there's a meta narrative, and then there's another meta narrative. There's a literature meta narrative where it's referencing things that, fans of Lovecraft and a number of other different, fiction mythologies, poetry, all sorts of stuff. Those are nods and homages, but unlike in other games where it's like director's commentary. You're supposed to be like, oh, haha, that's cool, that's Lawrence of Arabia, I love that, I've read that, I saw the movie, yay, I feel good because I recognize that. It's not like that in this game where these are separate layers. Like, the hidden ending in this game is almost exactly like the one in Silent Hill 2, but that doesn't mean it's just a nod to Silent Hill 2 and that it's not relevant to itself. And that there's no boundary, basically, where references, because Lovecraft and Bierce, they exist in this universe too. And so the primary characters, or at least the primary human character, has read these books. And so it's like, when we're talking about stuff from The King in Yellow, like The King in Yellow is a book that exists in our world, also exists in her world. But then, on another interesting twist, The King in Yellow is a weird meta narrative where it describes its own meta of where there's a play that exists in the book the world is written, or in the world the book is written, but that play does not exist in our world. It's imaginary to us. So it implies that this book was written in a different reality, which, this was one of the earliest concepts about this. So I'm going to stop blabbing, and we're going to get more focused on this, and I'm going to start actually playing the game. I was originally just wanting to record all of this so that I can go through frame by frame and look at all this stuff, instead of having to like go based on my memories and reload my file and look at all of the text files in the game. I wanted to just be able to go through frame by frame and look at everything. I'm playing on Switch, so unfortunately that's at 30 frames per second, not 60, but I don't think there's anything that flashes up so quick that going through like frame by frame I'll miss it. Like, it's interpolated out at 30 frames per second. So I just wanted to kind of do this live in case anyone wants to come in and talk about it, because honestly, I just really want to talk about this game. And there's a lot of people having cool discussions on Reddit and on Steam forums, but it's like, I don't really see people streaming it that are also part of the theory discussion, and where there's a lot of that going on. There's a lot of just general streamers that, I'm sorry, but don't know jack about jack besides how to use a Stream Deck. And They're just like, oh, this is cool. This kind of remote. What's that old game with the blood and the nurses? Silent Hill. Yeah, and it's like, okay, well, this is cool. But anyway, sorry, I'm not trying to be pretentious here, but I've actually read some of this crap, and I actually like am. I hate to say it about this game, is it is sad, honestly, that when people see something they don't recognize, rather than wanting to learn about it, a lot of people get angry and feel that it's pretentious. So hopefully people can get past that with this game, because to get the most out of it, it is like, if you haven't read a lot of the stuff it's referencing and you're not sort of part of those fan communities in the fiction world, you are not going to be able to get the most out of this game. And I would encourage you to go out and read this stuff. That's the idea. It's not supposed to make you feel stupid because you haven't read it before. Go out and check it out. It's cool. That's why we're all into this stuff. And I'm like pulling out books I read 20 years ago when I was a teenager, and I'm just sitting here glued to my monitors and my phone. I've got friggin' screens up all over with Reddit and Steam communities, and I'm talking to all the, oops, that's not what I wanted to do. I do not want to continue this playthrough. Oh, never mind. I pushed the back button. We're going to change profile anyway. So, let me just get into it instead of me just staring here. I see that nobody's joined me yet. That's fine. I was going to do this by myself anyway, but hopefully somebody else who's read a friggin' book before comes in and joins me, because it's like, I'm trying to join some other people's streams, and it's just like, guys, this is cool that you've got your theories, but if you have never read any of these books, or like, you're missing it. I'm telling you, like, it would help. So yeah, I'm not even trying to be pretentious on that. It's just there is a value to this. I'm gonna not do CRT mode this time because I want to see everything clearly. Like, I feel like that's blasphemy because the CRT mode is so well done in this game. Um, but yeah. Oh, hold on. Need to start recording. There we go. Ah, clicked just into. Oh no, it takes me to the menu. Stupid me. Okay, I've got like goosebumps because we're playing. Oh no, pushed the wrong button. I've got goosebumps to talk about this game because I love it so much. So someone come in here and talk to me about this. I don't remember. It's funny. I never even noticed the difficulty settings. Let's see. Combat accessibility. I don't know if this makes any difference. Like, I wonder if it, like, blocks off some of the endings. Oh, whatever. I guess I don't care. It was fine on normal the first time. Okay, so I'm going to explain this very first quote. A lot of people don't seem to recognize, so I'm going to get to that in a minute. But first, I'll shut up. Welcome, 96 Goka. Okay, so I want to point out something here right at the very beginning of the game, actually, before we even get to any of the quotes and references, is that where we wake up, is this maintenance pod. And the thing about it is, it's like, that alone doesn't make sense within the main narrative. If there was just a maintenance pod that Elster could climb into and come out all shiny and new, then, I mean, I guess it could be her biological components breaking down due to radiation. But this seems more weird that this is something I get. Basically, I theorize that this beginning shot is the beginning of when there's a lot we're going to talk about how the connection between dream and reality in a lot of these stories, like in the Sandman and HP Lovecraft's universe, in The King in Yellow, the actual short story connection, the concept that dreams and reality are separate is not at all a thing. Like, you can enter the dream world, and in Lovecraft's mythology, Leng is a place where it's like you enter, it's like a border between the dream world and all of the different realities. Because the way it works is you can enter the dream world, and from within the dream world, you can affect multiple realities that are all connected to the same central dream that is shared by all realities. And So, but the thing is that you could come back out in a different one, theoretically, or you could have influence on other ones, or you could even potentially create a new reality from within the dreaming. And this is shared concepts. Like, this isn't just stuff I'm pulling out of my ass. You'll notice this is the same in the Sandman. It's the same in Lovecraft. Like, a lot of this is starting way back in the late 19th century in surrealist fiction, before there was, before HP Lovecraft, when he was a kid, when he wasn't writing anything. All of these concepts come from way back then and exist in here. So I theorized that this, where you actually appear to be on Lang in this, is the beginning of when I always keep wanting to mispronounce. Let's call her Ari for now until I like read with bespectacled eyes and make sure how I'm going to pronounce her name for consistency through the rest of this. But basically, she's entered the dream either through literally crashing on a planet that had some sort of connection, or I think it's actually that she has entered metaphorically into the dream realm, and this starts from there. And so it's like this is now the beginning of where her dream realm has become a reality, in a sense, to where like things can exist in it and have their own storylines. Elster has entered it and now is basically created as a realized being with her own goals and stuff, much like Maria in Silent Hill 2. And that she's basically spawning out of this pod. This isn't something that was on the original ship where Elster could just go in this pod and come out, all perfect. It describes her as having to repair herself and, the things like that. So it kind of like, that doesn't make sense for it to be here like this in the whole narrative, unless this is the starting of this new reality existing. And so this isn't the final iteration. This isn't the her that we play through at the end of the artifact ending. This is the first Elster that came in to the dream and goes in, and like, so this is the start of that. But then a cycle begins at this point of when this reality has to be corrected. So that's just something I'm going on based on a few things that I've noticed, but we need to get to let's get to the fun stuff. Yeah, even here, it's like there's a hint of this, is that, I mean, sure, maybe you have your RLM and you also have this magic pod you can climb into, but it doesn't imply that that's actually a real thing in the original, if there is an original reality, in the original reality. So her climbing out of this pod all shiny and new seems to be part of this new reality where they're both basically not dead. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Another cool thing about this is that this game, it's all of the gameplay elements are a straight, basically, homage to classic survival horror. If you've played, Resident Evil, Dino Crisis, Silent Hill, then you don't even have to read. I mean, you should read all of everything in this game, but you just, they work exactly the same. Like flares to burn bodies is in a number of survival horror games and works exactly the same way. All the stuff is the same. Oh no, come on, come on. Tape. So yeah, I mean, in this version, like this is not obviously our original Penrose, because before that could have crashed on anything. It's not like, this is why I don't follow people saying, oh, it was magically teleported or reality was shifted so that, the ship crashed on Lang. That this is not the same version of the ship that they were flying around in, because if it was, then I mean, or maybe possibly someone dragged my busted up body, put it in the magic repair pod, and that's what's happening. But this is a much less dilapidated, messed up version of the ship, so it makes more sense that this is a new reality that has been created, that's either, and I feel that at this point it's no longer contained within the dreaming. This isn't a fantasy reality. She's entered into the dreaming And because the dreaming bridges on new realities, and theoretically, someone with this powerful bioresonance power could just create a new reality, emerge into it from the dreaming, and it would then be real. So it's, the concept of, God had to make a reality or something for it to be real does not exist in this kind of fiction. A person, like a powerful psychic, could enter the dreaming and create their own reality that is just as real as ours, that then other people, by this concept, like in the Sandman, you could then basically take to believing this and believe that you could enter the dreaming and come out in Batman's world, because that's how it works in the Sandman. It's not that the Sandman is specifically a character that only exists in the DC universe and Batman dreams about him. It's that he is dream of the endless to all realities, and the dreaming is singular. And so it's like one of the realities connected to that is the DC universe, since it's a DC published comic, which is a meta, but it's also true in the plot, which is totally like something you just kind of have to accept. Rather than trying to say, is this part reality? Is this fantasy? Like, is it a dream that is not a reality? Because it is all of the above at the same time, even though they're mutually exclusive. Like, we're given facts that show them as being mutually exclusive, yet they are in fact true. Like, that's just, if you ever want to enjoy HP Lovecraft and stuff like that, it's just like, these are things that you must accept. Okay. Every door. Even though I know which ones I can go in at this point, it doesn't matter. Every door. But what's interesting is, so it's like, I think that why we see the notes and why they're bloody, because I mean, it's so in the other reality, when she wrote this note, it's like her teeth had fallen out and so she was bleeding, so the blood on the paper would be from that. But this is not that reality, because the ship's not all messed up, there's not the other evidence of that, so memories of that are already starting to seep in, even at this point when this reality is somewhat pristine. Her grief is already tainting this reality. So it's like, even whether or not you believe that she's actually still in a coma, being affected by radiation poisoning and cancer, and that's what's slowly corrupting the reality, I actually don't believe that matters or is necessary, because it's more that it's like she's entered dreaming, and her original body, could have either died or doesn't matter, or has been consumed by this biomass, depending on how you want to look at it. But it doesn't matter, because her consciousness is entirely in the dreaming. But the grief, like her grief, both from her past, her fear of dying, her body falling apart, this radiation poisoning creeping out, all of this like grief and fear that is not dealt with, is affecting her subconscious and leaking into the world, which is again a common theme in all of these authors and writings, is that your dream state, like dream state, can affect reality, and that your dream state is affected by your traumas, your grief, your subconscious perception, things like that, and that when you enter the dreaming, those things can affect the dreaming in general and affect other people and affect the world outside. So how fucked up you are and how in denial of it you are is very important before you enter the dreaming and start digging around, especially if you're a psychic. Which we see in the Sandman all the time. Like, people with mutant powers and psychic powers and stuff like that, come into the dreaming and screw stuff up because they have traumas and things in their lives that make it, difficult. One of the early storylines in the Sandman is all about that, where Rose Walker and her brother are like, they're powerful conduits or mediums, and all of this trauma that they go through causes all kinds of crazy stuff to happen that almost destroys the whole universe and all the universes. Yeah. And just by like walking this narrow thread of a path that also involves his own personal story arc and redemption arc, or not really redemption, like growth, he like kind of finally grows up after bazillions of years. Dream is able to navigate this and preserve reality, which is kind of what we're doing. There's also, it's funny, like the Sandman I don't think is quoted directly in this, but the people who made it have to be huge fans of it, because this concept of sort of like weaving this twisted path through the dream to put things right again seems to be very much like the central thing that you're doing as Elster. Whether or not you are originally a creation, like whether or not you're like Maria in Silent Hill 2, or whether you're some other Elster unit that's been imprinted with the memories, or, you know, it does, none of those things matter. The fact that you are taking agency within Dream and doing something that would be logically impossible in any reality in order to set everything right is very much, again, a recurring story element that we see in these, and is, yeah, I guess you can tell I'm a fan, but Sandman is one of the best series that displays this in a very like easy, like Neil Gaiman has read all the stuff that I've read and love, and he just does the best job of putting it all together in a very concise, like, this is Joseph Campbell and HP Lovecraft in demonstration almost perfectly. Yeah, I'm not here to gush about that, but all right. You know what? I should inspect this closer and see time and exposure to the elements. Okay, that's cool. Let me look at it from every angle, see if there's any like ghost image or anything. I don't feel like there is. I feel like that's just blurring. Like some people have said it looks kind of like a skull face on the side, and maybe that it's like a superimposed image of the part where Adler is looking at you saying he wears no mask, but I don't think so. It's, I mean, it's similar. That almost looks like an eye socket off to the left of her and a face turned sideways, but it's not quite. It's not the same picture. Welcome, Joseph. Oh god. So I love how these are like the like light displays in Alien again. How it's like you'll notice in your Alien and Aliens when computers are doing stuff, they have these little 9 square panels, and it's never explained what, I mean, I guess it's like 1 through 9 numbers, and so, you know, maybe it's like this numeric code that they all understand, that like engineers of the future all know what that means, just like the little Dell light codes on the front of computers. But it's never explicitly explained. But you look around at all the technology in the Alien universe, and they have these little readouts of panels like this, and it, you know, it does stuff when it's doing stuff, and they look at it like they know what it means, but they don't remark on it. So I guess, you know, in a sense, like if my theory is correct, and this is the first run through the new reality once it's become a literal reality, this is left like the reason you drain this and there's a broken key card, and like why there would be any of this, why there's a puzzle that seems intentionally left for you, is because you're basically being summoned. At this point, she's summoning you for the first time into the world. It's ready. She's put it together in her little dream world maker, and she's ready for you to join her in the dollhouse. And so it's like this is all kind of like a mental levels enticing you in. God, I love this game so much. I love tragic love stories. I just like I can't get over it. You know, it's funny. I think for me, I don't know which story it was. Like I read some stuff when I was young where it's like there are some kind of like young adult fiction that I read when I was like, you know, 8 or 9 or something, where characters die and they figure you're old enough for that. But I think it was like I was probably 10 or 11 when I read the Elfstones of Shannara. And I mean, I guess I'm just going to do spoilers. This is like Final Fantasy VII. If you don't know Eris dies in Final Fantasy VII, I'm sorry. It's been 25 freaking years, okay? I just want to be able to talk about it. But the heroine just brutally, I mean, she doesn't die, but it's like, she basically, it's like, I have to become a god that makes the world continue to function now. And like, that's it. And it's just like, and all of her friends and like the male leader just like, what? Like, no, we thought it's totally like a it's Final Fantasy X is a huge its general plot of Final Fantasy X is a huge ripoff of the Elfstones of Shannara, where it's basically the same plot where a bunch of people go to help this person who's like the chosen one, and they all think she's going to go do something and save the world. Well, I guess in Final Fantasy X everybody knows Batitas, because screw that asshole. um, but it's basically like you get to the end and it's just like, nope, she is totally not going to come back from this. And so, yeah, I think that was the one where I was like, it just was so, compared to the Disney and the stuff I was supposed to be watching at that age, it was so just kind of was like, oh my God. Like, I hate this on a sense. I want it not to be the ending. But on the other sense, it's the only ending it could have had. And I came to that understanding at a really young age. And ever since that, what am I doing? What am I doing? I've always loved, tragic love stories. And especially though, I love it in a story, like, the thing about video games and them being able to have multiple endings and stuff is much like Silent Hill 2. This parallels Silent Hill 2 very closely in that it is a tragic love story. And you're not supposed to be able to, like, there's not supposed to be a happy ending. And the happy in the hidden, well, there's several hidden endings in Silent Hill 2, but it's not the 21 Sacraments ending. It's Rebirth. The Rebirth ending is, it's not a happy ending, but you do basically, it's cool because I always like that concept of like, why do fans of Dumas hate the 2000 Count of Monte Cristo? Because the story is not supposed to have a happy ending. That's missing the whole point. You can't learn anything from the story if it has a happy ending. And so it's like, I love how Silent Hill 2, and in a sense, it seems like this game, it's like, no, it's not supposed to have a happy ending. But if you want to be that, like, I'll show you. You be that person. You can totally twist the entire freaking universe and change what is possible in reality to get what you want. But I'm going to make you feel bad about it. And it doesn't seem to be exactly like that in this versus Silent Hill 2. But it's definitely like, I love that concept of where it's not supposed to be a happy ending, but if you can't get over that, you can create a happy ending, but you're going to also see how wrong that is in a sense along the way. I drink my coffee, my mouth's getting all like blah, blah, blah. One thing I find odd about this sequence is, although it's in first person, you're not able to look around. They don't want you to be able to look back at where you came from. And I find that curious about it. I don't have any real speculation about it. But all you can do is press A to walk forward in this sequence instead of being able to look around. So I'm wondering if there's something that we're not meant to be able to easily see. Like, for example, maybe the ship's not behind us and we didn't come from that. I don't know. But it's just, I find it odd that only in this one first person sequence. I haven't been on Steam's discussion. I've mostly just been catching up. So I didn't, I just got into it recently, and I always try to make sure I read up on everything so that people don't have to explain things again to me. And I'm just an avid reader. I love reading. And so it's taken me all this time to catch up on all the topics on Steam. And also, honestly, I would rather, I mean, since I'm not a huge YouTuber, but I have a smallish following, I'd rather try to kind of like share as much as I can in this way, because I find in forums it's very difficult to convey your meaning. A lot of times the discussion gets sidetracked by other people arguing about other things or bringing, in other topics and stuff. And so for me to just be able to put my thoughts out here and people just be able to watch it and skip through it is, I feel I can contribute what I have more easily that way. And then it doesn't bother me if people take anything I've said and twist it around or whatever. Like, that's the whole fun of this. I don't feel like there is any point in, like, I don't feel the developers intended for there to be one specific story. I think they're saying like, the mutually exclusive is not untrue. It's like there are, three or four legitimate interpretations at least that are all equally valid, and all are true and all are untrue. So this part, I feel like it's interesting because we have this alien looking hole. And so I kind of feel like there's definitely people making legitimate theories, I feel, that there is no actual otherworldly entity, that it's just within perception. But I feel like that would be not Lovecraftian. The concept that it's like, well, I just need to get to this quote. We need to get to this quote from the festival so that I can talk about it. So this is cool that she doesn't. So this Elster, it could be that this Elster is not yet, like, she doesn't understand any of this. She's not imprinted with the memories of the unit. Like, she's just been either freshly created in that pod, or is, another one that maybe they come to that pod to be imprinted with the memories and these haven't taken on yet. But she doesn't recognize any of this stuff. The stuff in the ship, the stuff, in here, she doesn't recognize any of it or connect with it at this point. So I guess there's a number of ways, I don't know, that we could interpret this. Okay, so this is important. Now this is actually, this game made me want to start a bookshelf and go and reacquire all the books that I had when I was a teenager and stuff, because I've, along the way, I've gotten into the world of digital, but I've now realized that it's like a lot of stuff isn't fully available or easily searchable online anyway. So The King in Yellow is a real book by Robert Chambers, and it's a collection of short stories that are at the same time referencing this meta narrative where I've talked about, where it's like in the world where theoretically the book takes place, or the stories take place, there is a play, The King in Yellow, but that does not exist in our world. It's referenced in the beginning of chapters and stuff as if this is a real thing, but we only know about it what is told in the story. But in the first four stories, the details of this play come into the realities of the characters. And so it's kind of like, it's very much like a parallel for this game itself, in that what's really exciting about this, honestly, I have to say, is first of all, anyone who was not, where I was 16 years old when Silent Hill 2 came out, I got to experience the absolute best of it. The early days of people talking about video games on GameFAQs, and it was, but this is even more than that. This is like a once in a century or two kind of experience, because I feel it does it even better than Silent Hill 2, where it's like all of the levels of meta are happening at once and are valid while you're reading it. It's very much in that way. It's like House of Leaves, or it's like the Sandman, or things like that, which I'm huge fans of all these things that I'm talking about. So basically in The King in Yellow, there are name drops and, references to his favorite authors. But they're not explained. There's no context given, exactly like in Signalis, where we don't know. It's like, is he talking about Bierce? Is he talking about Keats? He's name dropping things from poetry and short stories, but they seem to have a different context, and all of this seems to take place in a different world that is slightly different from our own. And all of that is valid at the same time within the narrative, without any of it actually being explained. And so I think The King in Yellow, this isn't just the creators of this game trying to be snobs and be like, oh, we know about all of HP Lovecraft's inspirations, not just Lovecraft himself. I think more than this game, like, each of the books and stories reference is sort of a parable for the game, but all of them and none of them are at the same time. So the game does parallel The King in Yellow in that there's this meta narrative going on that's referencing these different stories, but all of these authors' interpretations of these words and things are all valid. All of them also exist within this world, the same as the King in Yellow exists in the world of its characters. This is a, theoretically an alternate history or a future history from our own, where these books exist and the characters have read them. So it's valid on all levels at the same time as it being a metaphor for multiple things without any one of them being the true answer. That's the biggest thing to get on this game. There is no one true answer. Like, you have to accept that they are all and none at the same time, and that you choose for yourself. Each of the endings is an ultimate choice of where your interpretation ends, not a finality in any way. So this will be my third playthrough. I think I'm going to try to get Lily, or the artifact again, because I want to actually record it all this time. But that also cuts off a last little chunk of the game, so then I'll have to reload my save and go back and get a different ending, so that I can record the last sections and all those documents and stuff. Okay, that is a quote from The Festival by HP Lovecraft. We'll talk about that in a moment. Okay. Hurry up, game. Sorry, I'm so excited to talk about this because, like, there's only one or two people talking on Reddit and Steam that seem to be aware of this. And there's a person that has a really good theory, and I don't even think they're fully aware of this. And I just, like, it is actually fully supported in this reference that was just given. Okay, so that quote is from The Festival by HP Lovecraft, and I reread The Festival yesterday. It's a really short story. It only take 20 minutes. And what it is about is the protagonist is returning to his hometown because there's this Christmas, this Yule celebration that they have, that his people, he says, he doesn't explain exactly who these people are, but his ancestors have been doing this since long before the time of Christianity and Christmas. And this is an ancient Yule ritual, and it's done once a century, even when it was forbidden by law, during the time of the Salem witch trials and stuff like that. And he's coming back to participate in it for the only time in his lifetime, and doesn't really know the full details of what it is. And when he gets into it, this is, by the way, one of the earliest short stories that was later considered part of H.P. Lovecraft's Cthulhu mythology. So this is another important thing of a cool concept that a lot of these authors like to toy with, is when we revise something or change it, is the original version no longer true? That was the true version. When an author changes their work, does the original version stop being a true interpretation when it is chosen to be revised, or when we change a myth or a legend or something like that? So it's interesting of why that is the first Lovecraft reference dropped at the beginning of the game, is one of his earliest stories considered part of the Call of Cthulhu mythology, but also what the story is about, of this person going back and taking part in this ritual and realizing that it has to do with the Eldritch. This almost totally validates the relevance of a theory that at first I was like, what the fuck are you talking about? And that's talking about Issa having done a ritual in either a different reality or back in the solar system in the original reality that the Penrose ship took off from, that is this something in a similar way where it ties into something ancient and powerful that does physically exist on Lang. Now there's a couple of things. Is I believe that there is at least one reality where it's not that all of these replicas are just people that are imagined based on Ari's exist. I need to. Is it Ariane or is it RNA? I can't remember how it's written. I have to look at when it says. It might even be different in different language versions. That would be annoying. But a lot of people have said, well, it's like some of the people were just in the hospital with her. Well, it's the same people. The people from her class, the cadets, went to be in the military. So they were both part of her military unit, many of them, and the people that she was in the academy with when she was young. And so I believe there is a reality that where she came from, the rest of them did go to this mining colony and become the basis for the replicas that were built there. So that is basically the fate that is waiting for them. And that would also explain how Issa could have died as a human being, but still exist here, is that these aren't actually the original gestalts of them. These are that they were actually, maybe this process kills them or something, or they were already, it talks about them already being like very sick from exposure in the war, past jobs, things like that. So it's totally believable that that is actually something that happened. She would have, if she had stayed here with them in this reality, Ariane would go on to become the basis for potentially the Falke unit, we don't know, or the Calibri units, or who knows exactly how that would have gone because it's not clearly explained. But I totally believe that that is a legitimate interpretation of reality, is that is where this comes from, is that those people that were in her academy class and were then in her military unit did go on to become the basis of these replicas that are then still in service. And time is not necessarily so. All of their time is based on their star system, which is obviously not Earth. So we don't know exactly how their time relates to ours. It doesn't look like, Ariane's hair is always white, so it doesn't actually look like she's aged, 40, 50, 60 years by the end of the time. But they at least theoretically spend a few decades together on the ship, and this could then potentially be several decades later, even in relation to our time of when this is happening on the mining colony. Whether or not it's all fantasy or not, at least this is decades later. So the concept that there is a reality where all of these became the basis for these replicas that then exist on various mining colonies and things throughout the system, I totally see that interpretation as legitimate. And specifically because, there's a lot of Lovecraft you could reference. There's a lot of cool, spooky sounding Lovecraft, references that you could make just to be scary and sound snobby and smart. That's why I'm kind of honestly, I'm kind of offended a little bit that I feel like a lot of the internet has been ruined for nerds, and why we aren't able to have so many joyous experiences like this all the time is because a lot of people that are too lazy to just read stuff just kind of are snarky about stuff that they're not familiar with. They don't want to go out and read it, but they want to sound smarter than it. So they have this sort of hostile approach to it rather than, no, let's all just go out and read 50 books right now and get crazy into this and go batshit. Because what makes this so cool is that in 1895, little Lovecraft and, Jules Verne and H.G. Wells, they were all sitting around talking about the King in Yellow, being like, is he referencing Poe? Is he referencing Keats? Is he referencing Bierce? Or is it just coincidence? What does it all mean? And we're not doing that now. This is what it should be like to be interested in things and to love to read things. Not this thing of where it's like you reference a bunch of books and people are like, oh, you're a snob, you're being pretentious. It should be that I believe that all these references are thoughtfully and well crafted by someone who truly loves all of this stuff that they're referencing. And so which which Lovecraft quote was used at the beginning of the game is totally not just them being pretentious and sounding spooky. It is absolutely important, and it specifically, the festival references an ancient ritual that is, terrifying and beyond understanding for most. So that, I feel that almost totally justifies as one valid interpretation the theory being talked about of where Issa has started this in either a different I think it's a different reality. I think Issa is the replica. She's actually the replica based on the gestalt Issa, and she has now regained her memories in this facility filled with replicas. That's her reality, where she comes from, where they're all replicas that were based on the gestalts of this military unit who knew Aeon when they were young. And so, okay, I'm going to catch up on yeah, maybe it's just anime hotness where, like, when you're old, unless you're an old man who is a grandfather figure, you look hot no matter how old you get in anime. But yeah, okay, I need to, like, and I love this, you have selected or have been elected. Now, there's a number of, like, dystopian things that could reference, but I always just think of Half-Life 2. You have chosen or have been chosen to relocate to one of our finest cities. I personally call Dr. Breen. And also, so a lot of people have interpreted because Aeon is the only specific name given for an organization within this nation, but it's split off from the Empire, is that's the name of the nation. I don't think that's the case. I think Aeon is more like Operation of Naval Intelligence, or, the CIA or something like that. They're this agency that controls these sort of secret experimental programs. Like, they are the people that have access to that one note that mentions how all of this technology that's based around bioresonance is controlled by a select powerful few. I think that's what Aeon is. Aeon is this agency run by powerful bioresonance that know the secrets to how, who was the person who started this revolution and broke away from the Empire. Were they a descendant of the Empress? Are all these bioresonants who look really similar, are they all descendants of the Empress? These would be the people who know all that stuff and hold the keys to the kingdom of how the technology works, but that's not necessarily the name of the nation. That's what I think it is. I need some, oh wait, no, here, I brought myself a protein shake. I don't need food. I might have to take a Gandalf's magic break here in a minute. So this is something that's really interesting. We start down here at the mirror, and that seems to always be where these ones start. So we're not the same unit that we just saw. So what I feel like is that's the end of that section of narrative, is that was the first time an Elster enters this reality that Aeon has created, and that Elster is then absorbed. That's what's happening, is it's being broken down and fully absorbed into the reality. So that is a real Elster that either came here to the ship, is the original one that was somehow could be magically repaired by the magic repair pod in this reality. But, she comes down here to be basically sucked up into the reality so that she can be infinitely regenerated. And that's what it is. We start at the mirror every time, which is, again, a Silent Hill 2 reference. But I think that it's basically like an Elster is starting there. But she says, I came from the surface access lift. So I kind of feel like that plays into that these are other Elster units that could be coming from somewhere else. Like, all of them in the galaxy are drawn to this point or something. And they show up, come down the elevator, go into this bathroom and look in the mirror, and then are imprinted with that original set of memories that came from that first one. And that's where each of their journeys begin. They don't all wake up on the ship, because that wouldn't make sense. They're not all different Penrose units that crashed their ships here. That was an original one, either created freshly in this reality, magically fixed, however you want to look at it. But then all of these are different ones that start their journey at this mirror. All right, it's a Gandalf's magic break real quick. Thank you so much for joining me, 96 Goka. I really am, like, as you can see, I've got words, and I would love to have someone to share it with. Feel free to fill up the chat there so I can have some stuff to shoot off on besides my own BS. I'm going to take what I call Gandalf's magic break, which you will immediately see what that is. My cables are all tangled. Well, I always appreciate you coming by, Joseph. Even if you haven't played the game we're talking about, though I definitely highly recommend. Okay, somehow I managed to tangle my headset cable around every single other cable. We're back. So they name the original empire. I think it's the original empire. This is the part that I need to read. Let me go back and read this document I just looked at and see if it specifies. So what it seems that the Yusan, our wonderful nation against the remnants of the empire, so they don't actually name either of them, but they do refer to, I'm pretty sure it's the empire, not the nation, though those are great descriptive terms, is Yusan, which to me is like a shortening of Eurasian, because it seems to be that it's like a combination of Eastern Europe and Asia into a singular empire. So it's kind of, I'm curious about this of where the original Empress comes from, because you get the impression that I think she honestly, I mean, considering that it's like the creators of this are from Hamburg, I think that she might come from a part of, Germany, probably in Eastern Germany, formerly occupied part, or that it was that somehow a lot of people write in ways that are personal to them in the final little tiny chunk of a story that you haven't filled up with references to all your favorite stuff and enough original stuff that you came up with to justify the narrative on your own. I feel it's correct for authors to put in a little bit of their own experience to make it real, rather than that just being kind of, personal masturbation, or being a lazy writer of just basically rewriting your hometown into the setting for your horror story. Here's looking at you, Stephen King. All right. It would be funny if, like, on your sixth or seventh playthrough, like, all the notes are just like, "Great pits hath been dug, which should not be dug." It's just like the quote from the festival every time. It's like, okay, fuck you and your pits, Lovecraft. I'm gonna dig a deep ass pit, and I'm gonna get my baby back. You're not stopping me. I am totally the James Sunderland type, where it's like, I will crawl into hell. I will grab Satan by the freaking mulberries, and I will be like, "Give me back to me!" Which is pretty much like what Dante's Inferno is about. Just saying, like, evil spirits, you leave this house alone. You try to, like, take my wife off into your demon world. I'm with all my freaking books and shit. Documents. Documents. God, how I love documents. Yeah, I don't need to pour over that one. I don't think there's any real hidden meaning in that. No, this is not a first playthrough. This is like my third playthrough. I'm recording all of this right now so I can go through a bunch of the scenes frame by frame, which I guess I'm just doing a bunch of extra footage while I'm standing around and talking, but whatever. I also do find it interesting how the camera's watching you all the time. Like, if this isn't entirely, whether or not that's an element of a dreamed reality or a real reality, I find it interesting either way. So let's see. On my first playthrough, I got Promise, and on my second playthrough, I got Artifact because I was following a guide intentionally trying to get it. No running in the hallways. This is why you can only slowly shuffle. Let's see. I believe it. Too lazy to read stuff. Pretty sure it was 204-512. Go on. Right, I guess, see, that's the thing, is I feel like there's a legitimate. I did. I did not believe this. That's one of my favorite things about looking into this game, is there's been several times where I was like, okay, I think these three theories are the most legitimate, and the rest of these people are smoking freaking fairy dust. And then I'll see something that goes into like a book or something that I've read, or a poem I've read, that the person making the theory is not even aware of. And it like means they're right. I'm like, okay, you know what? Like that is the, if they notice that, and then I see that it's a clear, like it's a quote, I'm like, no, that's definitely that. Like that first Lovecraft quote being from the festival, I think is really relevant. And to me, like that was boom. Like the Issa ritual theory is completely legitimized to me as something that, whether or not it's, you know, any one specific reality, it is definitely something that the creators of the game intended for you to pick up on. So it's a legitimate interpretation. And then from there, I went into the like, okay, well then is there legitimately a reality where like this mining facility, okay, here we go. Pay attention to people. Just plug my headphones back in. Okay, so yeah, at first I was totally on the page of that. Oh, let me finish this dialogue. So yeah, the photo does switch right here, but that's not, okay, so that's not, this is what's interesting. That's not the same photo from when you look at the records and it shows all the military people. It's like, that's a different photo with a different background behind them. So it's like, this is entirely a mix of perception of the two photos. Like this is, she's in her military uniform, but it's still the background of it being on the observation deck where the picture with Aeon is taken. So like this is entirely like distorted perception in this part. It doesn't fit with either like purely explanation. Oh, great pets! I need somebody to translate these for me. The German I can manage, but I need some, like, cause, you know, that's another reason I want to record all this myself. Is I want to go through and translate absolutely everything I can. Which, it's cool that they didn't translate it, but considering that the original language is in German, I feel like that's not, that's like, why would they have not translated some of those things when the people in the original language can understand it? That ain't right. Okay, let me catch up on comments. Apologies. Okay, so here's the thing. I was originally totally on that page, Dr. Feelgoose. Oh, and welcome, Dr. Feelgoose. Of where the whole thing, the whole mining facility thing, was just her imagining what it was like if she went here. But the whole thing of the that original Lovecraft, like what the story of the festival is about, and the going back now and having watched the opening twice of like, you know, what is Issa doing in that part and what relevance does this have to that quote, is that is totally validated for me that it's like there are multiple realities, including an original reality which Ariane and Elster left in the Penrose, and she never went to the mining colony and has no idea what happened there. But there is also, besides, separate of the reality that she eventually creates, once she becomes linked to this cosmic force or ancient entity artifact, we don't, you know, I'm still not totally there on that. And it, there was a legitimate reality where they came, the people that were in this military unit, and what would have happened to Ariane if she hadn't launched off, is they would have been the gestalt basis for these units that are like later, apparently decades later, going from their dates, which again, we can't necessarily relate how that, you know, correlates to our solar system rotation. But it is apparently decades later when this is happening, and there are all these replica units that do actually appear to legitimately be based on the members of this military unit. And I think there's confusion because there's two military units. Aeon is not in the same uh military unit with Alina. Like, this is different generations. There's one, this is like a couple decades before that happened, and that person that we see in the photo with the bandage on her eye is the basis for the original Elsters, which already exist at this time. They exist because their gestalts came from a previous generation of soldiers, and they have already been, their brain waves or whatever have already been used to create units that exist at the time when Ariane is in her 20s and has, finished her term of service in the military and is embarking on this program. But these other ones, based on the other people in her unit at her time, do not exist yet. So there's a legitimate reality where they all go off to this mining facility, which is also apparently, like, either whether it is at that time, whether eventually maybe they're just such good freaking miners and they run this place so good that this Aeon decides, hey, let's turn these people into replicas and we'll use them all over, and they'll be the best damn, worker units ever. And that's why this is happening. But I now believe that is a legitimate reality where that has happened. That's why there's this time jump of this being decades later. Why would that matter? If she had gone there, it would have been years earlier, but this is later. So I feel that what happened is Issa that we see, that is an imagined, like, she somehow, by doing this ritual, she's warped her own reality. But although she perceives herself as her gestalt self, what she actually is and what all of them are is replicas based on the people that Ariane knew, not because she's imagining all of this reality, but because that is another reality that potentially exists out there that is connected through the dreaming, where they became these replicas. Okay, now I'm going to catch up on what you all got to say. Yeah, and I think that's what's going. So there's a big key to this is, so this is one thing I love of how the meta is true, the literal is true, even though it doesn't really make sense. Initially, Alina and Ariane are not connected besides looking similar. But coincidentally, Alina had a best friend, lover, or both in her military unit that went on to become the basis of the Elster unit. And then it happened that Ariane, in her choice of wanting to be alone and get away from everything, she was partnered with one of these Elster units, and she happens to look, whether this is fate, whether this is a result of the reality being changed by the dreaming to make all this possible as part of what Elster is doing, or whether it's just Elster's hallucination of her, regaining her gestalt's memories and wanting to imprint that person she loved on this person. It seems more to me that basically by awakening Elster's gestalt memories, she associates them as the same person. It's basically like the person she loved when she was a human being has been reincarnated and they're together again. So one reason that her reality is stable, even though it's at maximum instability at the same time, is because for her it's the same. It doesn't matter whether or not they are a reincarnation or whether or not her perception is twisted to view them as the same. This is, for her, she was reincarnated as this Elster unit and got to be with someone who to her seems exactly the same as the person she loved when she was alive. So the two realities merge and make no difference. And because she's just very matter of fact in her personality, she's able to just accept that. It's like, it doesn't, whatever. It's cool. I just want to be with her. I don't care. And I love that aspect that, like, love is more powerful even than multiple realities and like conflicting possibility. I'm going to cry. But it's like, for her, it's just, I love this person and there is a path for me to be with her even beyond death and beyond reality, and I'm going to make that happen no matter what it takes. And I fucking love that. That's so good. It is so good. It justifies if every other thing in this game was just a reference and a rip off of Silent Hill 2 and stuff like that. If it was nothing more than that, which it absolutely isn't, that alone, like how well that is written in and how well it works, if all of this theorizing is true or if it's not, even if it just inspired us to come up with it, damn, that's worth 20 to 30 bucks. All right. Yeah. Yes, I will definitely leave the stream up for a while. Yeah, no, I got you. I happen to be waiting to go to a dentist appointment in a couple hours. No, no. So the thing is I don't think that she conjured up I think what's happened is that a reality in which her military unit went on to become the gestalt basis for replicas that are later used at this mining facility exists, and a reality where she and Elster are shot off into space, whether or not those two realities originally had any connection or not. That basically through the dreaming, like imagine it, I need a freaking whiteboard. Imagine the dreaming like a big circle, and all of our realities come off of it like little rooms. And you enter the dreaming, and normally you just kind of like jump up like a fish coming out of the water, and you enter the dreaming and you go back into your reality, and maybe you create some ripples in the dreaming while you're there. But, mostly everything is fine. And when you see things in the dreaming, it's like you may see something that's a hint from another reality, or, you know, could have some relevance. But you, as a typical mortal like you and me, have no idea what it means, and you don't do anything significant about it while you're dreaming, and you don't screw everything up. It doesn't matter. You just plop, you see it for a second, you're like, whoa, that's crazy. And you plop back into your reality and you wake up and everything's fine. But sometimes people that are powerful psychics or bioresonance or something, people with not, it's not mutant powers, but in the Sandman it's like people in the DC universe have powers and stuff. So it's like, whereas in our universe none of us, as far as I know, I hope someday I awaken to powers, but the decades keep going by and it hasn't happened yet. In our reality we don't really have powers. Whereas in the DC universe, it's like these people go into the dreaming, and then some of them are psychics and super geniuses and mutants, and people from other planets with powers when they come here, like Superman and all kinds of stuff like that. And so they can create bigger ripples. And so that's what's going on, is both by, or what that's what, by that interpretation, which I now think is a totally valid theory, is going on, is that Issa's reality, in which she's conducting a ritual, and Ariane's reality, in which she, as a bioresonant, is natively able to affect the dream. They have basically, instead of being little fish and jumping up and going back in, they've gone farther into the center of the dreaming and connected their realities. And so, basically we're going in and out of two screwed up realities that are messing each other up, and that could be possible. It would be very Lovecraftian. I mean, it's not irrelevant that Lovecraft is referenced here. So it would be very Lovecraftian if it's not just in the dreaming, but there is an actual ancient cosmic entity involved here. So it's possible that it's pulling people into this, either through referencing the occult, digging holes which should not be dug on places like Leng, which is, in Lovecraft's universe, the entry to the dream world, or crashing into things, or sending psychics out to where it's like in this situation where she's in cryo sleep and she can just dream infinitely, and unbeknownst to her government that sent her out here, she has this incredibly powerful ability that allows her to affect the dreaming the whole time that she's in there, this is more significant, something that's not supposed to happen and doesn't normally happen. The kind of stuff that Dream is always dealing with in the Sandman, which I'm going to mention a bazillion times. Go read it. Go read all this stuff. Like, don't be turned off if I mention, please, don't be turned off if I mention something you haven't read. Like, don't be like, that's pretentious. Go read it. Go read it. It's so good to learn stuff. So I guess originally I felt, well, okay, so here's the thing, is with the endings, I feel like what it's really about is choosing which ending. It's kind of like you pick your theory of what, like, all the realities are equally valid. Like like by looking at all this stuff, I'm coming to realize that all of the stuff that people have come up with as the most popular three or four theories are totally supported by what's being referenced, and what, as far as I can tell by looking up, rereading, I've been obsessing over this game for the last few days, and pulling out books that I still had, dealing with what, how accessible they are on the internet, for ones that I don't. I think I mostly get at least what they're referencing in all these, and all that has basically told me is that all of those theories are equally valid, and you're supposed to basically pick one, and that each of, well, you're not supposed to do anything. You can do whatever the hell you want as long as you're having fun, which all of us are. But that basically you're given the option of a way out. If you want to just not let this drive you crazy and go down a rabbit hole forever that just gets deeper and deeper and deeper, which I would love to do. Like I said, I have never stopped playing Silent Hill 2. I mean, I'm totally like, I will go down this rabbit hole forever and be happy while I do it. I just have to not let it consume as much of my time as it has over the last few days infinitely. But each ending is like a way out. So Leave is basically just like, you see the result of Leave. You see all the different units out there that have just been like, nope, not doing it. And I think what's cool about it is like that ending is actually kind of hard to obtain. Like it would be hard for me to imagine playing like that. Um, but if you just don't want to engage, like basically if you've never read any of this stuff and you don't want to engage, you don't want to take a bunch of time reading all this stuff and like that, and you're just like, I don't want to screw around with these horror mechanics, I don't want to burn corpses, I don't want to deal with it, like you get a totally legitimate way out where she's just like, this is crazy, this is evil, you shouldn't be doing this, I can't take it. um and then Memory, the thing I think about Memory is it's like, depending on how you play the game, it's not that hard to get if that would be what you want. I feel like each ending rewards you based on how you play it actually pretty smartly, and kind of does give you what you want if you did play that way. So it's like Memory, you don't get any answers, but you get satisfaction because they die together in a sense, even though Ariane has no idea what's happening or who this person is. She has enough instinct or familiarity about her to reach over and put her hand on her as they die together. So it's like, that's about as much happiness as you're going to get, happiness without guilt or insanity, that you're going to get out of this narrative. So it's like, if that's what you want, that is a reward of where you can step off there. You can say, I'm done. That's where I'm stepping off. I'm satisfied with that. They got the happiest ending that, as I understand their lives and their existence, with as much as I want to go down this rabbit hole, that's the best ending they could get. And then Promise is very much like, you know, um, it's very much like, I disagree and I'm choosing to put it to an end. So if you feel that, like, there's a lot of characters, I'm also a fan of, like, sometimes it should be like Lovecraft writes it, where there's nothing you can do, the evil's just too big and it's too much, and that there's nothing you can do about it. But sometimes I like when you have like an ultimate Boy Scout or Mary Sue type character that just comes in and they know how to do everything, they aren't scared of crap, and they just come in and they're like, no, I am not taking your crap. Screw you, demons. Screw you, psychic people. I'm putting an end to this. Like, wake up, die. If you want to interpret it like that, is that it's like that's how she like creates a happy ending for her lover, is like, I'm gonna wake you up and I'm gonna kill you. That was the promise. I'm gonna stop this because this is all wrong. This is not how I want to remember you. You know, I want to think of a happy memory and move on, you know, and bring closure to all of this. That is a totally legitimate stepping off point too, you know, where it's like, you could, if that's what you want, you could feel very satisfied by that ending. And then finally, we have the artifact, where the artifact is for the people that you're just like, no, no, I'm gonna dance with her again. I don't care. Like you're freaking, you know, you are James. And you're just like, you got the crazy in your eyes. Like, you don't care. You're like, I don't care if these are demons or real people that have no idea what's going on. And I'm actually beating people on Main Street with a stick with nails in it. I'm getting Mary back, fools, and you're not going to stop me. Like, if you want to totally be that person, go all the way down the rabbit hole and get Mary back. That, it, like, gives you that. Where it's like, it, in a sense, it lets you interpret the final dancing scene any way you want. It gives you enough red herrings in the scene where it's like the ship is destroyed. It's not destroyed to the level it is when you see it having first landed on Lang, but it's not destroyed to the level we see it as the corrupted ship. It looks more like, say for example, what I was saying about the first sequence being the first cycle of the Lang world, the home. Like, they reference home over and over again, and home is Lang. So by melding that dream reality with a changed version of Issa's original reality, where they ended up on Lang, it creates home. But then home is corrupted, and it takes all these cycles by Elster to fix it. So that's taken decades. That is the level of dilapidated that the ship actually looks like in the dance scene. So it gives you that interpretation that this is literally real, of where basically after creating her dream world and waking on the up on the ship, not being diseased or messed up or anything, but being perfected because this is her solution world at first. At first, she's totally uncorrupted and fine. Aeon gets off the ship, puts on the Eva suit, and goes off into her own world that she's created. And that she is the Eva suit person that's being seen throughout glimpses of her, but not like she's fully there, because she's kind of a lot like Alessa in Silent Hill, where she's kind of like the wizard behind the curtain, but walking around in her own world at the same time. So to her, she's not perceiving it as a horror. She's trying to make this perfect world, but it's not going that way because it's corrupted either by this cosmic force or by her trauma or so on and so forth. But she is the person in the Eva suit walking around throughout the facility. Oh, it's the garbage truck. Scared me. It's like, oh my god, is something happening in the game because I left the controller down too long. I'm sorry, game. Don't hurt me. I should stop recording the game and wasting. You know, I have a crap load of hard drive space. Well, I care. I'm so not used to having. I don't have that great a computer. I have a. I mean, it's great, but it's a few years old. It's a 2020 Asus Zephyrus M16, which I traded the Xbox Series X. I managed to score on launch day without any trickery. So yeah, it was a really good trade at the time, and it has like a 512 really fast SSD that I put all my games on, and a 1 terabyte really fast SSD that I put everything else on. So yeah, but compared to my standards of how I used to do YouTube and gaming and everything, I have like unbelievable cosmic power now. And so yeah, I like do things like, oh my god, I'm gonna break my hard drive if I don't stop recording BS. But I'm like, what am I talking about? I have like 800 gigabytes free on that drive. I'm like, I'm just gonna record myself talking in case I say anything important. All right, let me catch up on them. Not that I ever think I say anything important. Yeah, no, it's funny. I looked at the ending requirements, and that's why I think that, like, you know, if you do play like that, it's kind of what you are kind of getting what you want, because it's like, so yeah, and I get, okay, let me get finish out on the artifact. I kind of drifted off there into other stuff. Okay, so basically what I think is that like so you're not that's what I'm saying about they drop red herrings for you to interpret it in multiple ways. If you try to piece together what's going on in the room and what version of the ship that could be, it appears to be the version from the cycle at the beginning of the game that does not feature a dead Elster and does feature the magical regeneration chamber of magic and, is part of the new perfected reality, but that basically the way to fix it all was for Elster to go down into this hole that is all corrupted by the cosmic evil or whatever has gone on or her own trauma, and to pull the literal real in this now real reality version of Aeon back out of this. And that is them. They're basically hanging out forever in the lobby of this reality on their ship where they were happy forever anyway. Not ever going down the freaking hole again, because that's totally like, not a good idea. Holes should not have been dug. Let's keep that in mind. And they're basically, it's like, on the one hand, this is kind of effed up. Um, the hole is not entirely disposed of. Theoretically, if this reality was originally real and all of these replicas were potentially what would happen to her, military school and later military squad mates, that they would have been sent out to this mining colony and have become the basis for this next generation of replicas. And that was this original reality that replica Issa, who had like now been confused with their gestalt memories, had corrupted. But through this bridge in the dreaming, they're now basically they've abandoned all those people to the entity and been like, chew on them. We're gonna hang out in the lobby and dance forever. Is how I guess that interpretation would be read. If you put together what I'm saying about the age of the room in the ship and how it looks versus other versions, that it's after these cycles have happened in this altered reality that they decide to live in, that is not necessarily, it's not just a dream world. It's either a world that's been created as an offshoot from the dreaming, as real as any of the others, like the one we come from, or it is an original reality that was connected to Ariane in the dreaming by a ritual conducted by Issa that we see in the intro. And that she basically came in and took it over, brought this cosmic entity through the bridge from the dreaming into it, offered as an offering all of these other realities and stuff that she'd created and whatever was left of the original, and gave it that to chew on. And that they're hanging out up in the imaginary ship that has a magic helipods for both of them, and where they're not dead and they're not cancerous and they'll just, I guess, never die because they can keep climbing in these pods, and they can be happy together forever with what they originally wanted. So it's like that is about the most, like, if you take it that this they really want it to reference Lovecraft on the multiple levels and everything that they bring up in this, and it's like they like literally want it to be a combination of all those things on the meta level, and you're supposed to follow the visual clues given to you in that ending. That would be one valid interpretation, I think, of it. On the other hand, there is the entirely metaphysical, but the thing about it is like you're really, in order to see how they interpret dreaming and realities, you have to look at how Lovecraft and these other writers viewed the same, because that's being referenced for a purpose besides just tickling your literature bone in this story. And again, I recommend the Sandman because it explains the same concept as concisely as possible. That it's not like there's dream and there's reality, and reality is reality, and dream is dream. Again, imagine like the dream world is a big circle, reality is all split off from it. You jump out like a fish, you're supposed to go back into your own reality afterwards, but these people are able to affect it on a greater level and can theoretically either enter other realities from the dreaming or create an entirely new reality from within the dreaming and birth it as it's, as real as any reality that we live in, or that Batman lives in, or that Godzilla lives in, and that those are all equally real. Let me catch up on what y'all got to say. Yeah, I agree. The leave is kind of the most weird one, but I feel like it's like the idea is you've talked to NPCs enough to understand what they're saying, and you just don't like it. So then you've still rushed through the game to get out, and you've tried a bunch of doors to hope that like you'll be get because sometimes doors do open that have been locked before. So if you're just neurotically trying to find other ways and shortcuts and stuff, I'd have to admit though that one makes the least sense. That's the other thing of why I'm recording all this myself and trying to poke around and explore everything because um I should start by exhausting all of her dialogue. Because I want to make sure there's a lot of stuff like I was viewing it with CRT mode, which I'm not now because I want to like see it as clearly as possible. I should turn off film grain too. Because yeah, I just want to know for sure. I don't want to look at other people's YouTube videos. I should probably play the game and talk less, but my brain can't handle talking all this stuff and like and playing the game at the same time. It's kind of a challenging game, which is another reason I love it. Like I love doing all this old survival horror shite. Okay, now it's as clear as I can make because yeah, I just want to be able to clearly look at all this stuff, go by frame, and some of the stuff that went really quickly. And I'm sorry, it's gonna be. I'm gonna have to like cut it all to get. I don't know. There's other people that have done the same, but or at least for my use, I'm gonna keep it on my computer and be able to just go through it in maximum quality, not filtered by YouTube and their stinginess about space. Yeah, because I don't know, a lot of those stuff that look like shadows or things like that, it's a lot of that is kind of like now I'm like, yeah, but was that the CRT mode just playing tricks on me? CRTs playing tricks on you? Let me tell you, I was there for the OG days of Zelda 64 and Mario 64 speculating and stuff. And, you know, the original Resident Evil games when we did like sit there and squint at CRT TVs and CRT TVs playing tricks on your eyes is a thing. So that's one reason, Dr. Feelgoose, I know this stream is extremely unpolished. I was actually just going to sit here by myself playing through the game and recording it to work on future videos. But I was just like, I don't have the patience. Like, I don't care. Obviously, my personal channel, I give zero craps. You want to go see stuff that I'm like trying to engineer for your entertainment and like I'm hoping people will actually enjoy? Go over to Deconstructing the Game, a channel that I work on where we actually make edited, produced content. Like, my personal channel is Shitpost Central, where I just do what I want. And right now, I want to talk about this. I don't have the patience for how slow it's going in, you know, discussion forums and like nobody the other people that are streaming it like have don't care about any of this stuff. They're just like generic game streamers that have maybe played a Silent Hill game or something before and are like, well, this is neat, which is valid. I'm not trying to be elitist or anything, but like, you know, all you freaking literature nerds, you know, like, come from ye Reddit and Steve, like, we need a place to talk about this in real time, you know, and like, that is kind of my enthusiasm to start this stream because I just like I want to talk about it right freaking now, and I also want to be able to just record all this stuff. But I'm so like I'm in that, dude. What else am I going to say? I'm in the freaking the Charlie red strings on the board mode. I've been doing this for days. I've been reading nothing but old poems and HP Lovecraft and wikis and replaying the game over and over again. And I like made myself sick because I sat there like I ate just nothing but candy while I was sitting here playing this game like all freaking night. And then I was like laying on the bathroom dying. Like I seriously like prayed to live. Like I think I must be developing diabetes or something, or I'm just too old to eat nothing but candy for 8 hours because I just like I seriously felt like I was gonna friggin' die. And then after surviving with a bucket and the toilet at the same time. Sorry, this is getting really gross. But I slept for like 4 hours and then spent all day yesterday playing the game with like a notebook and you know, two computers next to me and all these screens, and like I'm like refreshing the Steam page and Reddit, like four different Reddit discussions all at the same time, and I've got the game up and I'm like, yeah, so it's like, excuse me if this isn't my best work ever, but I just like, I have to get this out and share it with other people now, because it's like I'm literally going down the rabbit hole of insanity. Like I'm going to spend the day going out and buying a new bookshelf, hunting down another copy of The King in Yellow and all the old Lovecraft stuff. That like, I'm getting way off topic here, but one thing with Lovecraft is I totally did that thing that a lot of us did, of where I got really into Lovecraft when I was a teenager, and I was also playing, you know, like I played the Call of Cthulhu video games. I admit, you know, first I played the video games and the tabletop role playing games because I'm a huge tabletop role player, and I had way more time to do it when I was a teenager, so I was trying like all the different systems that I could find. And then I got into reading HP Lovecraft, and I just totally cracked out for like, you know, a couple of years probably, and you know, learned all about the history of like his inspirations, the times, all this different stuff. But then I went to college, just community college, to screw around and take a bunch of humanities classes. But it was enough where I kind of like, people were like, Lovecraft was a racist. I'm like, well, yeah, but you know, eventually I kind of got in this mode of like judging people. It was, I don't know, I kind of feel like the last 20 years was like the time of judging people, and now it's like the time of realizing how much does it actually matter if we freaking judge people. Because you look back and it's like a lot of the greatest creative people are the biggest assholes. Like Stanley Kubrick, huge asshole. You know, it's like a lot of these people are just like huge assholes, and it's like, yeah, okay, H.P. Lovecraft was like probably more than a bit of a racist and definitely more than a bit of an asshole. But that doesn't necessarily mean that you can't enjoy or learn anything from his works, or that that is even relevant, that we can even get good creative works from anyone but assholes. You know, anybody else that's creating stuff are probably secret assholes. So, like, anyway, if I don't sit here and rant about this madness, then I would be out hunting down all the books that I got rid of 15 years ago today, and spending a bunch of money that I probably shouldn't off my credit card doing so, and trying to find the oldest printing of The King in Yellow I possibly can. So yeah, I'm kind of like, here we are. Yeah, well, oh, I'm hoping that there's, I mean, you, the one cool thing also that I really like about this game, and it is, this is why I say you have to catch this stuff when it's fresh to really feel this, because the way it is now, you know, now everything is known about Silent Hill 2. Excuse me. Unless you can force yourself to turn off all your devices and figure everything out in Silent Hill 2 yourself and not use a guide, you can't possibly experience it for the first time untainted by millions of us figuring out what every single little reference is and analyzing everything and going and reading every single book. Like I did it myself. You know, I went and like did this whole thing where I talked about Crime and Punishment and all the stuff that's being referenced in Silent Hill 2. I did a deep dive video series on that. And what do you mean, is it okay if you subscribe? Of course you can subscribe. I never ask people to subscribe because, like, honestly, I'm not monetized and I'm not going to be. I don't try to promote my stuff at all. I don't care. Like, you're welcome to join me for my shit posting of my life and my interests, but there's no obligation. So yeah, of course you're welcome to it, but just understand that, that's what it is. Sometimes it's me rebuilding an old car. Sometimes it's me working on my collection of old computers and video game systems. Sometimes it's me being obsessed with a new TV show or movie, and sometimes it's this, where it's like it just takes over my life. So it's not like it's going to be, you know, I do have a ton of game theory content on my channel, but I also have a ton of stuff where I like talk about, you know, holidays. I love holidays. I love cars. I love old machines. You know, I'm kind of a redneck. Like, I'm a redneck nerd. Like, I grew up in the wilderness, but my parents are like educated. Like, my parents both work for the parks department. So yeah, like, It's very strange. But yeah, so one thing I don't like is the reason I think a lot of people hold their content and is a lot of stuff on the internet has become about bragging rights of being right. Of basically being able to like take as many other people's ideas often as possible. A lot of these people are YouTubers. This is something that really makes me angry. And like I feel like I used to be part of the like Zelda and Mario communities. And then I feel these like I gotta calm myself and not use angry words. But people, there's a lot of these people that they basically they go around Reddit and they go around forums and they take all the smartest things a lot of the rest of us say, put it together into what they think is the perfect theory, which of course takes a bunch of us like going out there and on a limb and exposing our own thoughts and being more interested in learning than being right and bragging about it to in order to do this. And then they just collect it up and make an aggregate and want to be right and make the best theory about it, video about it and supported it. And so it's like it's just like I hate that. Nothing is about bragging rights. Like literally, let me give an example of where I literally have a complete inbox. I mean, opened. Obviously, I use it. Virtual Boy over there. I've never made a video bragging about it. I used it as binoculars one time when I was cosplaying as a colonial marine in a video where I was playing Aliens versus Predator on the Jaguar. But it's like the idea of taking it out and being like, oh, I have a complete working Virtual Boy, and that's like what YouTube I feel like pretty much has become, and it angers and disgusts me of where it's just basically like rather than just talking about their life. And it's like, hey, here's me scraping baby shit off the outer case of a Virtual Boy, but one day I'm going to find all the parts and this is going to be a complete Virtual Boy. They go out and buy all the parts and put it together and then brag about it. And that's what I feel like these theories are. That's what I feel everything is about. It's about trying to perfect yourself behind the curtain as much as you can, like the Wizard of Oz, and then only present the image you want that you feel is perfect with infinite time and resources. And that's why I feel you haven't seen, the theory videos yet, is because these got don't use angry words, Ryan. Also, like, have you noticed, I don't know what it is, but like something in southern England in the last generation of like men who are now 25 and live in southern England have taken over the world of video game theories and are literally what I just described. Like, sorry, I'm stereotyping, but like these are the people that angered me in the Zelda community because there's 4 or 5 of them on YouTube I know of that have, hundreds of thousands or millions of subscribers, and they all literally fit that stereotype. Do bad research, steal other people's work without crediting it, and are that. And they are the people that made me stop doing research into Legend of Zelda games and legitimately doing work to present results and try to share it with other people that have the guts and the curiosity to actually openly discuss stuff just to learn. Sorry, and rant. I'm gonna have to take a Gandalf break after that. Look, I'm getting the feels, the bad feels, the kind of feels that like if I have powerful psychic powers and I dream tonight, I'm gonna f some stuff up. So let's do some Gandalf. Sorry. I was just okay. My bad. Um, so I was just actually imagining, like, like the Sandman version of Dream of like me going into the dream world, and like I'm not going to impersonate a British accent because actually before the show, like I didn't think of Dream or any of them as having like I always kind of imagined them having unidentifiable accents, or to each of us having our own accent, which I guess that makes sense. Anyway, doesn't matter. But I'm just imagining him being like, it's like, Ryan, I thought we had an understanding. Like, you get to play Mr. Toad around my dream world as long as you don't break anything. I'm like, oh, dude, like, I'm sorry. I got really mad about some stuff after playing this game that just totally messed me up. And man, I've been on a tear in here ever since. Like, me being the person that has to be corrected because I'm screwing up the dream world. I'm totally gonna probably have a dream about that tonight. They decommission us both. They decommission us both. What time is it? Okay, I've still got almost 2 hours before I have to go to the dentist. Not the dentist. It's a hole. There's a hole here. It's still here. Get in there. Safely. Would never say that in Silent Hill. It'd be like, there's a hole, dude. It's like, that's it. Is it safe? You don't know. I don't care what you smell. Get in here. I went in. Oh, I need to remember to examine things that don't have prompts. That's another reason I can't just watch other people's footage. Because there's all kinds of stuff to explore besides prompts. And like, she'll comment on other things if you hit the action button near them. I should take advantage of this freebie time too, like where there's no enemies up. I should make sure I examine everything. I just need to like take deep breaths and not get off on wild theories. Like I'm about to go to the dentist in 2 hours. I need to not talk about this game the whole time to the dental assistant. And I'll just be like, okay. Notes. Has gone batshit. Let's see. The prompts. No prompts. So this one comment, I don't know why this sticks in my mind, but the synthetic skin on her hair were replaced with a layer of thin, wet gauze. So it's like, there's not any indication I've seen that what do we want to call them? Crazy replicas? Zombie replicas? Rezombies? Zeplicas? Zomblicas. We're gonna need something that's catchier than all of those. Anyway, there's no indication in any of the other comments that they try to like ornament themselves, like the creatures in the suffering, or that they try to repair themselves or anything. So it's like, was the gauze, were they trying to repair the unit and heal it before it eventually fell? Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, totally. I tried to look at that at a bunch of different angles too, the way the hole disappears. But it's also kind of like, I feel like that hole is the first time an Elster unit enters the kind of corrupted part of this world. and that starts the cycle of having to do whatever all this is, the ritual, which also there's so tarot. Like you got to go down a whole nother rabbit hole here with tarot. So I'm actually like I'm not a believer or a fan of astrology or tarot at all, but I know a lot about it because I love all of this, video games and stuff where people always reference it. And so I had to understand the mechanics of how it all works just so I can enjoy this stuff to the max. So understanding tarot is almost essential to getting how this is all working in this game. So when you receive a tarot reading, the concept of predicting or choosing my mother monitor fell down. Damn you. This monitor is supposed to be on a mount. It's actually supposed to be going in the Fiero behind me. That's another project I'm working on. But I just yanked it from where it was, and it's sitting on my desk with no mount. So yeah, cheap bastard, and I don't care. Totally lost my train of thought, but damn it. It was inspired by a recent comment. Let's see, we were talking about the hull disappearing. Being the first cycle, as far as I believe. Yeah, I guess all I was going to say is it's like once you're through the hole, you've been absorbed into this trap, this sort of circular trap that I think. Like she created her own reality, but it came at sort of a price of basically doing sort of a deal with the devil with this entity. And that she thought it was this paradise and she was going to walk out and like she was deceived, where it's like Lang was going to be home, she was home instead of trapped off in space. But this isn't actually her home, or I'm not even sure. I mean, you go back and all the crap I've said over the last like 2 hours if you care, but it's like instead she's fallen into this trap by this being that was either Issa made a deal with this thing or somehow invoked it, or she has, or they both did in their own realities, and that's how it's been connected. But basically a real living Aeon in this reality, which is now as real as any other, came out of the ship, put on an Eva suit, and went to explore this new reality, which she thought she was her paradise, and she's basically in control of and creating. But it is actually connected with this thing, and she goes into this like warped part of it, where I kind of imagine it's like the Sarlacc pit. It would be digested for 1,000 years. Like it's where it's like it does that, but with your mind, and it just like you think you've come into this perfect dream world, but you actually get sucked into this, and it like you create a world for it to come out of the dreaming into, but then it's actually like a parasite within your dream. And so you go into it and you get trapped in this and you feed it for an eternity. But basically I think it's like that's my interpretation right now as of this minute in my crazy fevered exhausted brain, is that the artifact ending is Elster, like Ariane is totally overwhelmed by this due to her grief, her past traumas. She does get caught in the cycle and is eternally feeding this thing. But Elster comes up with a solution of where basically, again, we're going back to tarot. It's like you can't get a tarot result that you want. You'd have to get a bazillion tarot readings to have it come out exactly how you want, with the cards in the positions that would give you what you think is the outcome. Like, it just doesn't work that way. That's not the way tarot works. You can't basically say, like, I'm pretty sure that I'm, ready for the tower card now, you know, and you're just gonna get it where you think it is, and like stuff like that. It usually, like, by odds of it being, you know, actually random in the opinion of skeptics like myself, it doesn't work that way. So no, that's cool. I'll probably end this fairly soon. I appreciate you all joining. um but so by having the ability to repeat this cycle over and over again, Elster is able to enter this cycle and basically get the tarot reading over and over and over and over again until the cards are in the right position, which I guess it's basically it's an offering to this entity that, like, I theorized that it is that this was a reality that started out that Issa came from, and that Ariane and Elster's corpse came into, you know, through the dreaming, and that basically the offering is feeding this reality, all the remnants of the reality that Ariane's power created, as well as what's ever left of the remaining reality, and whatever people or things were in that, to this thing for it to digest while they basically hang out in the lobby of this reality. That's kind of where I'm at right now. Yeah, I'm definitely going to leave this up. And that's why I'm playing through it all. So I don't know if I'll actually, maybe the next time I do this, I will just like play like video of the game. Like maybe I'll record myself doing stuff that's interesting and play it on loop or something. Because it's just like I can't even go off on these crazy theories and actually play at the same time. But yeah, I would like as many people as possible to join me and discuss this stuff. So thank you for joining me now. I guess I'm probably going to end this broadcast and I'm going to go back to just playing and recording so that I can actually, oh, well, I'll stick around for a bit, but yeah, that's where I'm at right now. Let me play this here. Let's make some progress. Okay, so we've got pictures. I still can't see those that much clearer. I mean, I would assume it's the people whose bunks these are. But I can't really tell like which specific units those are or anything like that. They're just too few pixels. Kick them while they're down! So this is something that I'm curious about is, I want to bring this up right before we get into here, is if this is originally, if this mine exists in an actual reality that, you know, is where all of this stuff occurred in a timeline prior to Ariane dreaming about it, then is it possible that this is not just Ariane imagining herself as working here, but as Elena? It's her. So if Elena was actually here, because I think when we get to the medical records, doesn't it describe Elena as being older in her medical record? I can't remember, but like she could have actually been here. If these veterans all do get sent out to this installation, and they do get turned into their mind patterns or something do get turned into these replica units, that it's possible that they actually were there, and that, you know, the person that she knew did die and was turned into a replica, and that they now, like, basically that they, as each of them dies, they, because they all seem to have serious illnesses, they are replaced with replica versions of themselves. This is like some experimental facility where it's like you work with replica versions of your former comrades, and that, you know, that is happening. That there was a time where both there was an Elster here, but this is the past. So it's like when Adler talks about there not being an Elster unit here, this is a prototype Elster way back in the day. They're actually the same one that goes on this Penrose mission, that left here to go on the Penrose mission, and he's not aware of because this was classified decades earlier when they were making these original replicas. And so that's what this is describing, is not just this melding of realities, but actually something that happened decades earlier at this very facility, if that interpretation is correct, that, you know, that is a potential reality of where they could have all went here, and that even Ariane herself would have went here if she had not gone in the Penrose program, and that's what's actually happening to them, is they're becoming the basis. That's why we see all these classified documents, because they're creating and studying them here as they're apparently mining, digging holes that shouldn't be dug. It's like an inside joke of this. Gotta be not digging them holes, man. Oh, I appreciate you saying that, but I don't need to be proud. I just need to be immersed in my obsession, and I want to be able to share it with as many people as possible. And really, like, it's the nice thing about doing it this way. And I'm not saying I necessarily want to like lead the discussion all the time because it's my YouTube channel. I just, as you say, nobody else was doing it. But when it's in this circumstance, and especially because I, you know, I did go through that huge Lovecraft phase 20 years ago, so I do actually get a lot of these references and have read this stuff. It's easy to go straight to that, because a lot of stuff, like one thing that I see on the Steam topics is, and again, like, this is not at all trying to be elitist, it's just like there is definitely meaning behind all the references to written works in this game, and to fully appreciate all this stuff, you kind of have to read it, or at least read a detailed cliff notes to get the idea. And so a lot of times people go down rabbit holes, or like some people are right and other people, you know, are pointing out actually, you know, already invalidated criticisms on things just because they're not aware of what is being referenced. So I guess that is one advantage I have here, is that I can say, oh, that's just, no, this is actually, you know, a quote directly from Lovecraft, or this is very similar to this other thing, or this seems to directly follow apart in Silent Hill 2. Like, there's a lot of stuff of like, why do we always start in a bathroom in front of a mirror? Well, the concept of mirrors is, you know, huge in all of these sort of writings and what it means, but it's also how you start Silent Hill 2. So it's like, that's one of those things of the multiple levels are all true at once. And the same with the artifact ending, which at the moment is the only hidden ending we know of. I really hope there are more. But follows one of the hidden endings of Silent Hill 2. The rebirth ending, I'm pretty sure, is the one where you do the 21 sacraments ritual. And follows a very similar path. It's done in very much the same way, and the result of it and the interpretation of it seems to be very similar. So it's like, yes, it is a reference to Silent Hill 2, but then, you know, there's also multiple levels to it. So I guess I feel, I don't know. Yeah, I definitely don't want to make myself the king of discussion on this, but I'm happy to invite it and sort of like moderate that to anyone who wants to join this, not shooting down any ideas that, you know, are worth exploring or interesting, but just if people have no clue, that it's like, no, if you've never played Silent Hill 2 before, that's totally this, and it can be other things, but it's definitely that. So it's like, you know, it that kind of saves us all a lot of time, is all I guess I'm saying. And I hope to offer that if there's anything specific or unique that I can offer, besides just being the first one willing to click the record button and go out there with my half-assed, unpolished theories and air them as they are now. So yeah, let's end on that, because I mean, I'm serious, my brain is so frayed. I should probably go to the dentist. My voice is already like beat because I've been talking like crazy for 2 hours. I should go to the dentist and just sleep, but that's not at all what I'm going to do. I'm going to come back here and keep recording. And depending on how many people's have like, watched this or responded to it, I may do another one, you know, um, yeah, I may do another one tonight and not be responsible because that's what I really want to do. But yeah, no, that's what's great about it is it's like I think the very clearly the developers like that's why I'm saying that it's like I think the three or four most popular theories that people are talking about right now are very clearly supported by the developers. Like they wanted you to at least go down a path similar to that just based on the things they're referencing. But not at all that any one of them is supposed to be true, or that the developers themselves wouldn't be delighted if it somehow the whole game. Uh-oh. Uh-oh, my internet is rebelling now too. Um, Sorry, but if someone came up with an interpretation for the game that totally fit that the developers actually hadn't intended, I'm sure they would be delighted. So that's all like, you know, I feel it's all totally valid. And I want to hear everybody's theory. The only thing I would mean about like sort of censoring things a little bit is to point people on to reading something because it's very relevant to their theory. And sometimes other people arguing with it, like, that's not a thing, that's stupid. Like, if I had probably been talking about this 2 days ago, I would have been tempted, but probably wouldn't have been to been like, no, I'm sorry, the Issa ritual thing, that doesn't make any sense. It's just part of the whole dream by Ariane because she was into the occult and they were all into the occult together when they were teenagers. Like it's just that. You're reading way too much into it. But now I went back yesterday and I read the festival and I'm like, oh shit. Now we've got four leading theories. And it's all total and it's like the thing is none of it is BS or just in your head because the more you go and look up, the more you go into the rabbit hole, and the more you pull up all the stuff they're referencing, and go deep into it, the more it supports more theories, not narrowing it down to less. So yeah, that is never going to be my intention. I want people to come in and discuss. The only time I would ever focus or try to save people time is when people are debating like whether this or not is a relevant thing to have noticed or interpreted in the game. And it's like, well, let me point you to this because you may find that it actually directly parallels this story that is name dropped here. So I think there may be more to that than necessary. Yeah, I'm not ever trying to come off as pretentious, gatekeeping. I hate that shit. I want people to want to read more stuff, feel safe doing it. It's like enjoying stuff like this. I mean, like literally when I say 125 years ago or something, when The King in Yellow was written, that the very smartest of humanity were sitting in the beer halls of the day discussing what the fuck it meant. And to be walking in their shoes and to have an experience like that, I mean, really ones like this, I mean, you can say like every few decades maybe of something like Silent Hill 2, I mean, we get them more often. I think we have more prodigies because we have a larger population than we once did. And there's more singular works of genius, but it's still not something that comes along every day where you can experience it before all the smartest people in the world obsessed over it like crazy. And I mean, pretty soon, I guarantee you, like, unless he's got a lot better things to do, Neil Gaiman is going to come in here at some point and he's going to be talking about this. I mean, we're literally going to have the best minds in humanity who are the most into this kind of stuff are going to be like cracking all the codes, everything they can figure out. And at some point, we'll go well beyond what the developers themselves, which there were only two of them in the core development staff, is still amazing. The things they even realized they came up with. And we'll go into stuff that, like, we will conclude as a fandom that it came from Dream, that their own inspirations came from the dreaming, which becomes more real to you the more you get into this stuff. And the more you believe that this is actually happening, and that it's like, some of these ideas are in this game and are real, but the developers didn't even realize it or intend it, but it is still valid. And we're going to get to that point, but all the most fun parts of it are all going to be well documented on the internet if you only play this game 5 or 6 years from now. And so I really need to push that end stream button and drink some water and eat something that's actually food. But I want everyone who could possibly be interested to be able to be part of that, not ever feel shut down or shut out. And yeah, I would totally. This is my contribution to that, as crappy as it may be. Thanks for watching. I'm pushing the button.